Hi, what's up everyone once again? It's Ibrahim Oyamide back on Green Illustration Studios channel. Today I'll be taking us into you remember this design that we created, getting to introduce ourselves back to the concept of isometric design, right? Now we are trying to take it a step further, guys. We are trying to create now so that you understand the difference between a 2D and a 3D object. We have all seen this, guys. This is an isometric design. If I want to mess this guy up, I'll just go ahead to click on home view, right? When I go to home view, you can see, oh, this is now a 3D workspace. You can see an isometric guy that is looking, I call them, like I said, 3D illusion, right? See how everything just falls apart, right? Because it's a 3D what? Illusion. That's not the top. I'll go back to my top. You look at it's giving us that vibe of 3D again. So again, this is a 3D illusion, guys. But I have a design here. It is also an isometric design, but instead of creating it using our isoplane, I'll create it directly on the 3D workspace. And we can see, I want us to have an idea into how tangible a 3D model is compared to, which is going to also be like an introduction to 3D workspace. If you don't know how to use 3D workspace before, we'll take it slow. It's going to be like a basic introduction into the 3D workspace. So again, let's take the very short ride together. Let's try to understand how AutoCAD create 3D design. So I've taken my design back to the second screen as you're all familiar with. Again, please like, share, and subscribe if you love this content. Subscribe on the channel and like so that we can get the word out. Let's move this channel forward a little bit. Alright, so guys, I'll go ahead to do the big wear the big boys pants here. I'll start a new design. Alright, start a new design. Let me click on plus. Now I have a new design here. I'm still currently on that same 2D workspace. How do I know I'm on 2D workspace? You can see my cross here. It has a cross. My Y and Z back at the corner. I'm on what? Top view. So I'll go ahead to do the big boy stuff now. I'll go ahead to select this guy and go to what 3D modeling workspace. Right there and then on 3D workspace. I still have my crosshair acting as usual. So I'll go ahead to click on what? Home view. Now I have the big boy here. Now you can see that my crosshair has changed. It was showing X and Y before, but now it has changed to X, Y, and Z. And we know what Z is on our 3D workspace. Z can be our height or can be our depth for any other element, that we put into our 3D. Now this guy can be so funny sometimes. That's why I right click on it, go to my UCS icon and go to what? Show icon at origin. So it locks it to the what side. So I'll go ahead to start my design now. I want to create this design again. Should I go ahead to show you an interpretation of what we have here? First, let me show you my process. I'll be creating the bottom part of this design. Then I'll go ahead to add this side of this design. I'll go ahead to add every other component to it. But it's going to be a step-by-step process. Let me take you through a tour of what the AutoCAD interface. Everything is okay. Everything is the same. You just know that our two sets have changed. I still have access to my drop commands. Right? You can see them on this list here. But again, some things have changed, and I'll take it very, very simple and very, very basic, guys. So how do we proceed, guys? I'll be starting with the slab, that thickness that we have right at the bottom part. So I'll start with the rectangle, right? I'll create the rectangle directly. Let me tell you, AutoCAD is very, very fantastic. Just like any other 3D modeling software. I'm talking about Autodesk 3D modeling software. I'm talking about the likes of Fusion 3D System and Inventor. You can create a sketch, and then from the sketch, extrude get a 3D model, or you can directly create a 3D model if you want to, right? What's the English, guy? Why are you putting it this way? Okay, don't worry. I'll use the two method. I'll work using what the two method. I'll be starting from the sketch first. We are familiar with the concept of sketch, so I'll start with the sketch. I'll start with the rectangle. I'll just start from somewhere around here, anywhere. Now I have a size there. What do I mean by a size there? Let me bring in the design again to your screen. You can see that I have a size of 96 and what? 64. I'll create that rectangle as the overall base of my design. So I'll bring this guy and put it on the side here, maximize one more time. So I'll go ahead to my design. I'll click again back to my AutoCAD workspace so that I can work properly. Now I'll go to the length and breadth of this design. I'll go ahead to enter the first length. You can know that this is 64, right? And I click on tab. When you click on tab, it switches the dimension, right? Then the next dimension I'm looking for is what? 96. I'll click on enter. Now you feel like what is happening here? When you click on zoom extend, again, if you want to use your shortcut very quickly, as you move Z, enter, E, enter, right? It zooms and brings everything in place. That is the conjunction of what? Z, zoom, extend, right? Shows everything that you have on your workspace, and this is exactly the slab that I'm talking about. Again, from a sketch, you can get your 3D model. How do I get my 3D model from a sketch? All I have to do is what, from this sketch, I'll go ahead to go to my what, extrude. And when I click on extrude, first, if you have a sketch, you know the way you start your extrude. When you want to extrude on AutoCAD, for example, because it's a closed profile. And what do I mean by a closed profile? If it's not a broken line, right? Let me create a broken line for you. Something that looks like a rectangle, but it's not a rectangle because what? It is not completely what? Closed. When I get to this end and I stop here, this is not a closed profile. You might not be able to extrude this. We can also do some things with this actually, but this is not a closed profile. Most of the time when you want to extrude, you use what? A closed profile. So I have this here, and I'll click on what? Extrude command. I'll just touch the what? Touch the path, right? I'll click on the path and I'll click on what? Enter. When I click on that path, I click on enter, and you can see that now it's giving me option to what? Add the what? Extrusion to it. What kind of extrusion am I trying to add to this? I'll go ahead to put an extrusion of, let me show you what I mean. I'll bring it down drawing one more time, and then you can see what's the thickness that I have here. You have been shown that it was 16, and that's the same thing as what we have on the side of the body. 16 is the slab that I have here. So I'll go ahead to move this design out one more time. I'll maximize everything that I have there, and I'll go ahead to what? Enter the distance of what? 16, 1, 6, and I'll click on enter. Now you can see that the slab has been created. Guys, this thing can be more interesting than this. What do I mean by that? Look at what 2D wireframe is currently what I have, the kind of view that I have. And if you want to see it realistically, guys, you go to what? You can go to different features here. I'll go to shaded with what? Gray. You can see the slab very, very visible. It's very, very tangible. And why do we call it 3D instead of isometric? If I go ahead to move my what? Orbit around the shape, you can see it in its glory. Everything is what? Properly seen, correct, right? I'll go back to my what? Home view. And this is what we have been able to create. But because I'm not using high-spec system like you guys are using it, I'll try to maintain my champion, you understand, and be what? Be cautious, basically, because this guy can just go blue screen around me. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm using a very good laptop. Alright, so now how do we proceed? We have created the slab, guys. How do we proceed? Let's start from the other end as well. I'll go ahead to start using my what? Rectangle. Like I told you, we created that from a 2D shape, right? I can select this object here. One thing about 3D creating objects from a 2D shape is that whenever you move that same object away a little bit, the 3D object is here. What am I trying to do is that not just when you have a 3D object, basically you can continue from that end. Let me do from Ctrl Z. This 3D object, because we are created from a sketch, does not mean that is the only way we can create a design. This time we are going to go ahead to create a box directly, right? When I click on a box and then I go ahead to create this edge, I'm trying to, let me bring my design in one more time. I'm trying to create this part of our design. We all know that is at a distance of what? 45. That's how tall that design is, and it's at this. What's the size? It's aligned to the edge of this design, and it's what at a distance of what? 16. You can see that as well, right? And of course the overall length of this design is 64. How do I get that? I'll bring this design out here and I'll maximize. Let's proceed, guys. So I'll start again my box there. I'll start from this end here. Now I have a box currently going on. What's the distance that I'm looking for? The overall length that is currently shaded blue on that my dynamic input. I'll enter the distance of what? 64, and I'll click on tab again. Tab switches from both sides, right? I'll enter the distance on this other width. The thickness of that thing is what? 16, as you all know. And I'll click on what? Enter. When I do that, the thickness has been entered. Everything is okay. But again, I need to specify what the height, because I created the box. You enter the length and breadth, and then you enter the height. It's a 3D element that I'm trying to create. What's the height that was given here? It's what? 48. And I'll click on what? Enter. Now this is the shape we are trying to create. But note, guys, note, take into what? Consideration the radius that has been applied here. A fillet has been applied. A fillet of radius what? 32. How do we add that to our design? I'll go ahead to something called solid, and while I'm on solid tab on my AutoCAD, I'll go ahead to something called fillet. Can you see fillet edges? I'll click on fillet edges, and I'll right click to select what? Radius on the list, or you can come down to come and select radius. What radius are we been given? Radius of what? 32. I'll click on 32 and click on enter, right? What edge am I trying to apply that radius? I'll click on what? This edge here. And when I do that, the radius has been applied, radius of what? 32. I'll click on enter. But AutoCAD will want to confirm from you again. Say, are you sure, my Oga, is this what you are trying to do? And you say enter, guy, and it will tell you now you have done something correct. Can you see that? Again, if you want to see this on a live view, right? You can go ahead to see this on the what shaded view, and you see exactly what we are creating. But I don't really have to see this here. Again, that sketch is always very interesting because you can see things properly, right? That's what I try to do. Again, it's not because of my RAM, and again, it might be because of my RAM. I'm just kidding. So the next part of our design is to create that box, right? I'll break this design, every complex element, guys. Every complex design that you can see, all you have to see is what break it down into simple elements. As complex as this thing is, all I can see here is that I have a shape here, I have a shape below here, I have a box here, another shape was what extrude cut was done here, and it gave us exactly what we have here. Another shape. Simplify every complex design that you can see, and then you'll be able to move forward with that design. So I'll go ahead to continue, guys. The next thing I want to create is a box. I'll go ahead to start my box command again, go to this end, activate my box command. I'll go to this end here, right, and I'll move. What box am I trying to create? There's a size there, guys, at a distance of what, 40, right? 40, and I'll grab the distance of what, the width. That's I'll grab the width. I'll click on tab. This space that is currently shaded blue is given to us directly from the screen, giving us a distance of what, 40, and I'll click on 40 and click on tab. When I click on 40, you can see that 40 has been fixed, right? It's remaining the what, how wide this thing is going to be, and what will help us to determine how wide this design will be. I'll go to my drawing one more time so that I show you what that means. Now look at this design. Simple mathematics needs to be done here. We have entered the 40 here, starting from that origin, a distance of about 40. Now we have a distance here. When the overall distance here is what, 64. The overall distance here is what, 64, and we are told that we have to reduce 22 from there. Can you see that? We have to reduce 22 from there. So what's the overall, what's the remaining part where this shape is going to contain? That is 42 from my own design. I don't know mathematics, just like any other person. So I'll drag the design back down. Since I have the 40 there, I'll click on tab and I'll enter the distance of what, 40 has been done, and I'll click on tab to enter the distance of what, 42, and I'll click on what, enter. You can see my box has been added. Again, 3D objects are determined by what, axis of Z. Z can be the height or the depth, right? I'm going to the height this time because it's positive, right? And then what's the height that we're giving there? That's 28. After 28, and click on what, enter. That's the height that we're given. Now I have that shape already created. Fantastic, everything is looking fine. But there is a extrude field that was done on that design. How do I get that? You're already familiar with it, right? We'll go ahead to add our circle as usual. I'll go to my circle command because I'm on 3D, no stress here. Because I'm on 3D, no stress here. So I'll click on this tab. Is this the type of circle I'm trying to create? This is not the type of circle I'm trying to create, right? It needs to be placed on the right view, right? And I'll click on tab. Look at my view cube here. Look at how I have oriented my design here, right? Everything it needs to, what I'm trying to design is directly on the left view. You can see that. So if I start to create my circle here, it's going to work, right? I'll go back to my own view because I don't have to be on that view to be able to create what I'm trying to create, right? How do I proceed, guys? There's something here known as coordinate, and when you click on this drop down on this coordinate, it shows you different views that are available. Right? What kind of view am I looking for? I'll go ahead to that same left view that I have here, and I'll start my circle command one more time again. We have been given circle. Circle is going to be a radius of, in fact, we're not giving a radius, we are giving a total diameter. Let me bring the design in. See the circle here, a full circle, but it's a diameter of what? 24, right here. So I'll go ahead to bring this guy out one more time, maximize. So I'll go ahead to my circle one more time. Center diameter, I'll be really familiar with the gist. Go to my circle, center diameter, I'll get it from that same midpoint, and then you can see I have the right circle that I want, right? On that right circle, and it's facing the right orientation, I'll go ahead to enter the diameter of what, 24, and I'll click on what, enter. When I have my circle already created, now how do I extrude? Let me now show you a mistake because it's very important to make mistakes. When I want to extrude this guy, and I click on this guy, and I go ahead, I'm trying to extrude what? This circle, and I click on what, enter, and then you can see my extrusion is currently going on, right? If I go ahead to use this edge as a guide, now let me show you on 3D what we have been able to do. Look at what has been done. I've added a shape to it. Can you see that? Can you see that? I've added a shape to it. That's not what I'm about to do. I'll click on Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z. I'll go back to where I have my design. I can trim it off if that's what you can trim it, but I don't really have to trim. There's something known as what, press pull. Press pull can be sensitive enough to pick out any other shape. It will not take out the entire thing, just take out what, the excess. Some can take out intersection as well. So I'll go to my press pull and I'll locate this internal point here. I'll click on this guy and I'll extrude just that half. I'll make sure I take it to the edge completely. Now you can see that it's taking it off. It's chopping that part off, right, out of my design. I can select that same circle because I don't need it anymore. Select that circle and delete. What have I done, guys? I'll go ahead to my 2D shape, go to my 3D view so that I can see exactly what we have done. So we are still on track, guys. So we are still on track. What I did was I used press pull instead of extrude. Extrude added to my design. I can extrude negatively as well. Don't worry about it. But press pull makes the job easier, and because it's the basic of 2D, so I don't really have to go into content. I don't want to confuse you guys, basically. So we have this 2D currently ongoing, and this is working for me regardless. So I'll bring my design in, and then I'll show you again. This is where we have gotten to now. Is remaining this part here and this other part that I have below here. How do we get this part done on our design? So I'll go ahead to start my first design. I have this shape still working fine for me, but I have to create a you have seen the design. Let me bring it in again so that you have an idea of what we are about to work on here. We already have the boundary line at this edge, right? So we have the line at a distance of 12. Can you see that? Now, apart from that, it's connecting directly with this line, right? It's connecting directly with this part of the design, right? All right. So I'll go ahead to click on take this guy back to this side. Instead of wasting our time, there's a way we can proceed with this one. I'll go ahead to select my line command very easily. I'll start my line command on the list. When I start my line command, when I come to this edge here, thank God for object snap tracking. I'll just move my mouse on that same line of the object snap, and I'll enter the distance of 12. And to start my line at a distance of 12 away, right? Note that you have to have your object snap track so that it keeps this line on a straight line. Remember the auto mode, remember, right? So I'll make sure that I'm on the straight line. I'll look for make sure that I have my intersection on as well, so that whenever it reaches this end, you can clock this guy in, right? Immediately you do that, you can see that my line has been created. Now that's where your press pull comes to play. You can select my press pull because a part of it is what I'm trying to take out. I'll extrude at what height? The same height of 28, guys. So I'll click on 28, I'll click on enter, and then I have that same shape there. Can you see that? Now the next thing I want to do, I want to split this guy. I know that it's not the full shape that I have, right? I'll go back to my line command. How powerful can line be in this AutoCAD? I'll go to this edge. I'll just get it down to to this edge, guys. And what am I looking for again? Guess. Press pull. Thank you so much. So I'll select this side of the design. I'll also take it to the other end, and I want to close it to this end. You can see that I've chopped that guy off, and then we have our design still working fine for us. Now, how do we get that bottom part, guys? How do we get this flat end side? Let me bring my design in one more time. Look at it on this side. You can see that we have created this end. Everything is looking fine and correct. The other part is this guy that I have here. How do we get this, guys? How do we manage to get this guy? So it is also very easy, the same way. Should I leave that for you as assignment? You say, nah, you won't do the assignment. Let's do it together. All right. So now we have a distance. We have the overall distance there, right? Now, how do we get this design sorted out? We are told that this design is at a distance of 16, right? So I'll start my line command very quickly. From the origin. I'll just start my line command from the origin. Look for the midpoint on this list. Line, right? Look for the midpoint on this design. When I have my midpoint, I'll take my design of what's the distance, what's the overall distance of that design is 20, right? I'll go at the distance of 20 inwards, and I'll click on that. And then I have that line of 20. Can you see that? The same way that I have that, I can select the same guy, escape. Now that's why selection cycling is important. Whenever you're working on 3D, you want to know, is it a line that you're trying to select on the 3D object? Selection cycling target me to select my line. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to use offset command, or I can use my copy command as well. Copy at the distance. Copy can also work as well. So I'll click on copy, and I'll select this line that I have here on the list, the line itself. So I'll click on enter. Where am I trying to copy from? I'm trying to copy from here. So I'll go at the same distance. Copy at the distance of 8 away, 8, enter, and I'll copy at the distance of 8, enter. Right, I'll copy at the distance of 8, and I'll copy at the distance of 8 on both sides. Right, now that I have both shape created at the distance of 8, you can see that I just use a copy command so that I don't stress myself. Object snap will make that easy for us. I can go ahead to use offset. Offset to be more complicated, so I don't want to complicate life. So we have circle there. There's a circle that like a 2-point circle that makes this life easy for us. So I'll go to 2-point circle. You can see that what's the kind of circle I'm trying to create from this point to this point. But you can see the kind of view that I'm currently on, right? This is not working for me. To create the proper circle that we need, I'll go ahead and change my view to what? Top view. Not even top view. I'm going to be, yes, I think top view is what we need. Now from that top view, I'll go ahead to start my what? Circle, 2-point circle. I want my circle to connect from here to what? Here. And then you can see the shape has been created. Go back to home. You can see my shape as what? Created. What do I need? I don't need this guy. I don't need this guy. I'll select the line itself and I will delete. Apart from that, I also need to trim some things off. For example, this other half of my shape, I can get that. I can get rid of that. The line itself, the circle. Can you see that? This is exactly what I need, guys. So I'll select escape. What am I looking for again, guys? I'll select what my press hold. Select this point, and what am I trying to do? Take it down at the distance of what? I'll use this midpoint as my guide. I'll use this midpoint as my guide. So I'll use that midpoint there. Where's the guy? This guy on the list here. But I can take it out completely and then it chops off that design. Now you can see what we have ongoing, guys. We have the design properly done, properly created. No stress, no force. Now we have this design already created. If you want to see this design, you see them that we created different components on top of another. When I'm selecting one of them, you can see that it is selecting them separately. This one, they are together because we created it out of it, right? But these guys, we started a new design afresh, right? How do we now make them a whole? Because if you try to move this guy, that's when you start seeing movement. Select this guy and then move forward. Can you see what happens? It moves away because they are what? They are not together. How do we make them a whole? I'll select them separately. Select the base as usual. When I move my mouse to the next body, you can see a cross icon around my my crosshair, or is it this small? I'll select that shape and I'll click on what? The next object. There I have 3 of them. 3D object. Now that I have 3 of them selected, the next thing I want to do is to use a command known as what? Can you see union? Union helps you to what? Merge solid objects together to be seen as a whole. So I'll go ahead and click on union. When I do that, it will ask me what object are you trying to select. I'll select this guy, and then the last guy, 3D object, and then the last guy on the list, the bottom part. And then after selecting everything, I'll click on enter. Automatically, this object has been seen as a whole. So let me move it away so that I can see what is happening here, because you see some action now. So let me move and move this guy at the distance away. Look at the sketches that we created. They are still there, so I can delete them. Right? Now I have this object created, and this object has been designed using our what? 3D workspace. And why do I keep calling isometric design as a what? 3D illusion? Because what? They are not 3D objects in a whole. When you start rotating and panning at it, it becomes flat. They are what? 3D what? Illusion. So I'll go back to my top view. That's when isometric retains its what? Usefulness. I'll go back to the next drawing this time. Why do I call this 3D instead of isometric? If I go ahead to my own view, I'm probably on my own view already. I'll try to orbit around the shape. You can see it in different perspectives, and it is still making sense. The form are retained. It's solid. It is solid. It is beautiful. It is what? It is a solid object. And there are these different type of view that I've been using. There are shaded view. There are what with edges. We have what shaded without edges. I have realistic view that shows something like a rendering. You can see light sources already showing on the object. Apart from that, we also have conceptual that shows like what massing or whatever. Basically, it shows like a conceptual drawing, like it's showing like a 3D model. It's really giving you that 3D model view. There's an X-ray view that shows the 3D model, but you can still use some. You can see some. And we have the wireframe, right? And the 2D wireframe is what we have been using. It gives us that 2D realistic view, like an isometric view, but in fact, we're actually creating a 3D view. So that sums up the section for today, guys. We'll be drawing the curtains here for today, and you guys, I believe from this very short video, you understand the concept of 3D workspace and how we can basically put 3D objects together. What I used to say to all my students is that if you understand 2D properly, like 2D, no, they confuse you. Sorry. What I mean by no, they confuse you means you understand 2D like the back of your hand. You know, you understand it very well. You won't struggle with 3D. you won't so struggle with the 3D interface if you understand 2D very well. So everything boils down to your understanding of what 2D drafting, 2D sketches. If you understand how 2D works very well, you won't have any problem of 3D workspace. So again, that sums up the end of our session, guys. Please like and share this content. If you find this content valuable to you, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you feel like whatever we are doing here aligns with what you do. Again, this channel is for people of designs, people in the design phase. And what we do here is more of graphics, more of anything related to design. I do UI UX training as well here at my company. And this knowledge, again, as you learn more, you develop yourself more. And this is what we have been trying to do. I want to share that now, because as you teach, as you try to explain whatever you know, you get better in your own field as well. So guys, there you have it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Like and share the video. Take care of yourself. Peace out.